Most people still treat bread like the safe part of a meal, the harmless filler, the thing you don't have to think about. But a lot of modern bread isn't traditional food anymore. It's a soft, shelf-stable product engineered to stay pleasant while it quietly stresses the body in small ways. It's like driving with a brake pad that never fully releases. Nothing dramatic happens today, but heat and wear build in the background, and you blame time instead of the friction. After 40, that friction matters more because your margin gets thinner. The liver is still filtering, but it's often processing more at once, including medications, alcohol, and years of metabolic noise. The kidneys still regulate fluid and minerals, but reserve capacity isn't what it used to be. The nervous system becomes less tolerant of sharp blood sugar swings that once felt like a normal afternoon slump. Hormones that used to smooth out highs and lows don't buffer as cleanly. So the same loaf that felt fine at 30 can feel like low-grade drag at 50, and it gets misread as normal aging. Here's where people get misled. They scan the front of the bag for comforting words like whole grain, multigrain, or made with oats, and those words feel like proof. But front labels are allowed to suggest health without explaining mechanism. That's the legal gap. It's like a shiny paint job over an engine that's been tuned for shelf life, not for your biology. The back panel tells the truth, but only if you know what to look for. The first bread category to avoid is the one that looks responsible but acts like fast sugar. The giveaway is enriched wheat flour, sometimes listed as wheat flour enriched. Enriched usually means the grain was stripped, then a few vitamins like folic acid and niacin were added back. Mechanically, it's like shaving down a whole log into sawdust, then pressing it into a board and calling it wood again. It holds shape, but it behaves differently. Without the original structure, digestive enzymes access starch quickly, glucose rises faster, and insulin has to respond harder. Over years, that repeated sprint can show up as cravings, energy dips, and a sense that you just don't bounce back like you used to. The next quiet trap is bread that advertises fiber, but delivers it in a form that doesn't behave like real grain structure. You'll often see inulin, chicory root fiber, or modified wheat starch. Those ingredients can inflate the fiber number, but they don't rebuild the original architecture of the grain. Think of it like the difference between a bundle of cables and loose strands. A bundle controls flow. Loose strands tangle and ferment differently. Some isolated fibers ferment fast, shifting gas and pressure in the gut. The bread still feels like a smart choice, but the body experiences it as another variable it has to manage, especially as gut sensitivity increases with age. Now for the slow accumulation problem, the one that rarely gets blamed on bread because it's not dramatic. It's the loaf that stays unusually soft for days, resists mold longer than expected, and tastes identical from first slice to last. The ingredient line often includes calcium propionate, sodium benzoate, potassium sorbate, mono, and diglycerides, datim, or polysorbate 80. These are functional tools. Preservatives slow spoilage. Emulsifiers stabilize texture and volume. The regulatory loophole is that evaluation tends to focus on individual ingredients, not the real-life pattern of daily combinations eaten for years. That's like testing a single bolt instead of the entire bridge after 10 winters. The long-term cost isn't a headline event. It's steady exposure to products designed to override natural freshness signals, while your digestion and microbiome carry the workload. Then there's the label term that confuses people the most: multigrain. It sounds like diversity. It feels like insurance. But it doesn't guarantee the bread is mostly whole grains. A loaf can be multigrain while still being built on enriched wheat flour, darkened with caramel color or molasses to look heartier. Caramel color is a classic clue because it can change appearance without changing the starch structure much at all. It's like tinting windows and calling the car safer. Your body doesn't digest the color. It digests the structure. This is the part labels never explain. Most front-of-bag language is identity marketing, not physiology. No high-fructose corn syrup can be technically true while sugar, dextrose, or corn syrup solids still appear. Made with whole grain can mean a small percentage. In the U.S., the first ingredient is one of the few hard truths you get, because ingredients are listed by weight. That one detail can cut through the performance. There's another subtle issue that matters more after 40. Synthetic fortification inside enriched flour, especially folic acid. The public health intent is real, but the label doesn't explain that synthetic forms can require extra conversion steps in the body. Conversion relies on enzymes, and enzyme efficiency varies with genetics and age. For many people, it's fine. For others, it's just another small processing tool, added to a liver already juggling other tasks. Not a crisis, not a diagnosis, just one more reason. Added back isn't the same as never removed. So when people say bread brands to avoid, the practical translation is this: avoid breads where enriched wheat flour is the base and the health story lives on the front. Avoid breads with a noticeable cluster of stabilizers and shelf-life chemistry like calcium propionate, DATEM mono, and diglycerides, or polysorbate 80. Avoid breads that look brown and seeded, but rely on coloring and sprinkles, while refined flour still drives the formula. Those products can feel normal in your hand while behaving like metabolic friction inside the body. Now, two better options, meaning two smarter directions you can use anywhere without chasing specific names. The first better option is bread built primarily from truly whole grains, where the first ingredient clearly says whole wheat flour, whole rye, or another whole grain listed plainly as whole. When whole grains form the base, you get intact structure that slows digestion, like a speed bump placed exactly where the road would otherwise turn into a downhill run. That tends to mean steadier energy and less pressure on insulin signaling over time. The second better option is simpler ingredient bread with fewer texture and shelf life manipulators. When a loaf doesn't need a long list of conditioners to stay soft and consistent, it usually means it's closer to bread as food, not bread as formulation. A short ingredient line is like a lock with fewer moving parts. The fewer moving parts, the fewer hidden jobs your body has to do after you eat. If you want rules that make you hard to mislead, keep them universal and boring in the best way. Treat the first ingredient like the steering wheel because it directs everything that follows. Prioritize ingredient form over quantity claims because fiber can be real structure or it can be accounting. Choose transparency over comforting vocabulary because multigrain is a vibe and whole wheat flour is information. and reduce biological workload by choosing breads that don't force repeated glucose spikes and additive exposure as a daily pattern. Bread isn't automatically the enemy, but modern packaged bread is often engineered to sell stability while your biology pays the long-term handling fee. Once you learn to read for structure instead of slogans, the category becomes much harder to disguise.